What's poppin', y'all? Welcome back to another episode of NBA Weekly. I'm your host, Pee Wee the Plug, 1/4 through the wire, number one Knicks fan in the world. And today's episode is going to be about the Ben Simmons trade dilemma. There's a lot going on in Philadelphia, and it's getting intriguing and exciting, but it is a dilemma. And the situation is Ben Simmons has communicated with his team, to the Philadelphia 76ers, that he does not have any interest in being a part of this team and that he will not show up to training camp if there's not a deal in place to get him moved before training camp starts. The dilemma with that situation is, though, that Ben Simmons is on a multi-year deal, so he doesn't have any leverage to kind of push any pressure to make this trade happen faster. The second part to Ben Simmons' side of the dilemma is that he has rumored teams that he wants to go to, or that he wants to be on the West Coast, or things like that, where again he just doesn't have enough leverage to kind of dictate those type of things. On the 76ers side, they have been rumored all offseason. Anytime a Ben Simmons trade rumor or speculation has come up, it's been about the 76ers kind of asking for ridiculous packages, James Harden-esque packages for Ben Simmons, when I don't really understand why, because at this point it's just not realistic. I am with the Philadelphia 76ers and Ben Simmons. I'm in common with them that I do think Ben Simmons has value. Don't get me twisted or misinterpret me. I think Ben Simmons has value and he has things to offer that are special. Obviously, he is flawed though. And the last time people saw him, it was the lowest point of his career. So with that being said, I just don't think at this point, after the last time we saw him, you're going to get a James Harden-esque deal. But I do think he has value, so I understand that they're not going to allow somebody to come in, finesse, or get over on them, because Ben Simmons is a guy that if you trade him, he go to the right situation and have a team properly built around him, and not necessarily playing with somebody like Joel Embiid, who doesn't really complement his style, he could blossom into something extremely special and make you regret it. So I do understand why they're trying to get exactly what they want, because they don't want to give him up or sell him short, and then he goes somewhere, has a team be built around him, and is everything that they thought he would be when they drafted him, while they kind of got the short end of the stick. But they have to be realistic and understand that they're not going to get a James Harden-esque deal, like we just mentioned. That number two, a lot of the players that they would prefer or want at this point in time, unfortunately for them, aren't really available realistically. Damian Lillard is in a place with Portland where he's going to give them another try. It just is what it is. Should Damian Lillard be requesting a trade and leaving now? Sure. But is he? At this point in time, no. He's going to give them one more chance, and he's going to play for Chauncey Billups to see if anything can change remotely close to making them a better team, or give them some shot of competing at a higher level than what we've seen them do over the last few seasons. And he won't be available or request a trade until the trade deadline or the end of this season, which is next offseason. And the only way he requests one at the trade deadline is if they start off horrible, which, though I don't think Portland are contenders, I also don't think they're a terrible team. So they're going to be somewhat competitive in the Western Conference to be a playoff team. The question is, how do they compete during the playoffs? Do they underperform like they did last season when they lost to the Nuggets without Jamal Murray? Do they have another first-round exit? Do they get swept? Does some magical run and stars align for them to go on a run? That's all to be seen, but they're going to probably be competent and competitive enough throughout the season where Damian Lillard doesn't request a trade till after the season. So you can mark him off the list. Bradley Beal, he has an extension that he's going to be up for that he's probably going to get from the Wizards at this season. So I think he's going to finish this year out. And to be honest with you, as far as the Bradley Beal camp, his wife, it doesn't seem like they have any interest in leaving. And I at this point, I honestly believe him. I really think that they're fine with being in Washington. He's going to get paid handsomely from that extension, which is going to make it even more comfortable for them to stay in Washington. And until then, I don't really think anybody else should be having their eyes on Bradley Beal. So we took those two top dogs out, which is the only guys that really line up as far as what Philadelphia would want or need, and anybody that we can really see in any way, shape, or form available. So when you take them off the list, now what? Now, from Sham's report that we got earlier today or yesterday, they talked about the Toronto Raptors having conversations and showing some interest. We talked about the Timberwolves, Minnesota Timberwolves showing interest, and they've been active all season. All off season. Anytime Ben Simmons trade talks have come up, they've been one of the most active teams. I give them that. And then even outside of that report, we've heard the Golden State Warriors. Don't know what way or how that would happen, but we've heard the Warriors. And then there's also talks where Portland still is involved, except Philly swallows their pride and accepts the fact that they can't get Dame, so they move their attention to CJ. Maybe. And that's where the real dilemma comes in, is something is going to have to give between these sides. Whether it's Ben Simmons, who doesn't want to be there, doesn't want to go to camp, but my question for Ben Simmons and his team is how far are they willing to go? It's one thing to not show up to camp and to, behind closed doors, tell them they don't want to be there without publicly requesting a trade or publicly doing things or saying things. But it's another thing to take it into the season where you don't show up for games and you give up some of your paper. That's a whole nother level and scale. Is Ben Simmons and his team willing to do that and play that game? Not sure. Philadelphia, are you willing to accept the fact that you're not going to get a James Harden-esque trade where you get 3 or 5 first-round picks? Secondly, there isn't some star out there that's available that you're going to realistically get. It's just not. You're just not. It's not going to happen. There's no Damian Lillard or Bradley Beal coming for the foreseeable future or in a timeline that you're working in with the way Ben Simmons and his camp is communicating to you guys. So, like I said, one of the sides have to give. Now, when they talked about trade packages and rumored packages and players involved in trades from the Raptors, Timberwolves, and whatnot, the Raptors side, it was headlined with Pascal Siakam. Pascal Siakam is a solid player. I think he's much better than what he did showcased last year. I'm giving the entire Raptors organization a pass on last year. They were the only team in the entire league who had to play in those circumstances that they played in. They weren't home in Toronto. They had to play in Tampa. It's not even where they live. Some of them brought their families. Some of them didn't bring their families, had to be away from their families. It's not the gym or arena or anything that they're used to. That's a whole new, that's just weird. So I give them an entire pass on that. But Pascal Siakam, as good as he is not really the type of player that the 76ers are probably looking for. The last thing they want is extra front court help. So, to entice that trade or to make it even better, the Raptors would have to add in Fred VanVleet. Not sure if the Raptors necessarily want to do that or if they even have that much interest in Ben Simmons just because they just drafted Scotty Barnes. Like, don't get me wrong. I think Ben Simmons is better than Scotty Barnes. I would take Ben Simmons over Scotty Barnes 7 days out of the week. But if I'm trading Pascal and Fred VanVleet and then I'm bringing Ben Simmons, I don't like the fact that I have him, Scotty Barnes. I don't have Fred, who would complement Ben Simmons. I don't have Pascal, and now it's weird. And the fact of it is that enough for Philly? Do they want those two and more? You never know with Philly because their asking price is so all over the place. I'm not even sure or sold on the fact that Pascal and Fred VanVleet is enough. One video I saw on YouTube or I saw on Twitter or something, they had that trade, but then it was like also with 3 first-round picks. I don't think Toronto was bringing Ben Simmons to a team that has Scotty Barnes, OG, Gary Trent, Malachi Flynn, now it's probably your starting point guard, and is giving up the assets. I think you would want that, but you would want to keep your picks because that's a team that you're now kind of rebuilding with and not necessarily competing with to the point where you don't want to have any draft capital at all. That would be confusing. So that trade doesn't seem likely in any way, shape, or form without maybe a third team, which is hard to predict. The Timberwolves one I like. The Timberwolves trade package that was rumored, or the players that we saw that they would be willing to talk about or discuss, I like it a lot more than the Raptors, and it seems way more possible or realistic. We saw the names D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley, Jaden McDaniels, probably a pick or whatever, be involved. And I think that's a good one. I think that's exactly the type of trade that the Philadelphia 76ers should actually have interest in and be willing to listen to. Because with that trade, you're getting back D'Angelo Russell, who has had by far the weirdest career. I'm going to say that here. D'Angelo Russell, to me, has had one of the most weirdest, craziest careers that we have seen, start to a career that we've seen yet. I don't think it gets talked about enough. How this dude was drafted by the Lakers, and in his rookie season, he was coached by Byron Scott, who is just not a good coach for rookies. And secondly, that was Kobe's farewell tour. So his growth was a little bit stunted in the fact that a lot of that was about Kobe. Kobe still shot up all the balls, and it was playing through Kobe, and it was just not a developmental phase for young players at that time. I don't really think those young players like D'Angelo Russell, Julius Randle, who was coming off his broken leg rookie year, I don't really think that was a good year for them as far as development, because they were showing so much love to Kobe, rightfully so, but it kind of stunted them where they didn't have that freedom or that development in the real games. Like at one point in that time, Byron Scott benched D'Angelo Russell and Julius Randle for making young mistakes, rookie mistakes they were getting punished for, which is not really ideal because rookie players are going to make rookie mistakes. That's how they learn to not make the mistakes, by making them. So that was bad. And then the Nick Young situation happened, and everything was awkward and weird in the locker room, and that was just tough to take into the second year. And the sophomore year was better, but then the Lonzo Ball situation comes, and then he gets traded to Brooklyn. Crazy. But then he gets his career on track. He turns it around. They're hooping in Brooklyn. He makes an all-star game. They go to the playoffs, and they play Philly. Philly should be familiar with D'Angelo Russell because they played against him in the playoffs a couple years ago, and he played well. Brooklyn stole a game or two, and the series was a lot more competitive than it was supposed to be on paper. And then he made them popular, got them some swagger, a little bit of identity, made them cool again, Brooklyn. And then they traded him for Kevin Durant because who wouldn't? It was a chance for them to elevate from being this nice, cool underdog to now contenders with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. And he was traded to Golden State, who knew that they weren't going to keep him long term. He knew he wasn't going to be there long term. It was a short marriage, and he just had to basically sit and wait and play until they found out a team that they were going to trade him to or what they were going to do with them. And in that year with the Golden State Warriors, Steph didn't play, Klay didn't play. It was just a weird year for the Warriors where they were bad. I mean, he did have a crazy game that year, 40-point game or whatnot, and then ultimately got traded to the Timberwolves and was traded again. You know what I mean? Like, for a player that just made an all-star team and took a team to the playoffs, so it was a big reason for that team making the playoffs. That was just a weird series of events for him. And then to be traded to the Timberwolves, who are a mess and who haven't had success in a very long time or consistent success. Then they got injuries. He's hurt. Cat is hurt. They get the number one pick. And now it's kind of like at the end of last season, they kind of got some momentum or whatnot. But now here it is again where there's a situation for him to get traded again. But I still think that D'Angelo Russell is still a good young player who has a lot to give, especially on the Philadelphia 76ers team. I think he would be a much better fit with Joel Embiid than Ben Simmons. And I think that's what the Philadelphia 76ers have to start thinking with, the word fit. Forget trying to get the proper player that you think is better than Ben Simmons or, you know what I mean, has enough star power as Ben Simmons in case Ben Simmons is traded and blows up to be this crazy star player that he wasn't able to be with Philadelphia. And you're going to, no. D'Angelo Russell can come in and be the point guard for the Philadelphia 76ers. He is a 3-level scorer. He is an incredible passer. The only thing about D'Angelo Russell is the GP, the games played. Because you have now him. Joel Embiid obviously has the issue of games played, but I do think if you bring him in there, they would be a very good 1-2 combination. You still have Tobias Harris. The Timberwolves want Ben Simmons so bad, I don't think you have to worry about giving up Matisse Thybulle or Tyrese Maxey. And then you would also be getting Malik Beasley, who I think is a great floor spacer for you guys off the bench, or if you started him at the 2. Or you would come off the bench because you still have the veteran wing, Danny Green. And that's even more punch fire off the bench or whatever, scoring power off the bench. And like I said, because you don't have to trade Matisse, Maxey, any of those guys, Shake Milton, when a trade deadline comes, you can now use those assets to maybe go get a 3-and-D wing here, a 3-and-D wing there. You got the buyout market to really put together a complete veteran team that can make a playoff run. But if they don't succeed, it wouldn't be because of fit. They would just get outplayed, by better teams. But I do think D'Angelo Russell would be a much better fit. It gives you a bunch of different looks. It's going to be harder to double team Joel Embiid. It would put him in a situation where he wouldn't have to be around the 3-point line as much or settle as much. And it would give you less predictable offense. You can now do pick and rolls, and it can be lethal. Just have different intricate things and situations going on. And on the flip side, for the Timberwolves, you put together Karl-Anthony Towns and Ben Simmons, who I think is a much better match than Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid can occasionally knock down a 3, but that's not his strong point. On the opposite end, Karl-Anthony Towns is probably the greatest shooting big we've ever seen. He comfortably shoots 6 to 7 threes a game at a 40% clip. So now that you have a guy that shoots it like that, you can now allow Ben Simmons to have duck-ins and mismatches in the post and just do different intricate things and interchangeable things between those two. And you still have Anthony Edwards, who out the gate was a 20-point scorer as a rookie and can be a guy that can be a bucket on a perimeter. And that's a nice little 3 that you have there, and you just build with that and work your way up gradually into something good and special. So that's the one that I like, that I would hope to see the 76ers fold and accept the fact that there's just not a lot out there. Ben Simmons is putting pressure on you guys. I know he doesn't have ideal leverage, but neither really do you. And the more he communicates that he doesn't want to be there and he's not willing to show up to things, it only hurts your leverage. And right now, you should just put something together and accept what the Timberwolves or somebody like that has to offer, because the more he does that and the more he sits out or requests or becomes public, the less these teams are going to be willing to give you. Now, it gets ugly, and the Timberwolves are saying, hey, we know you got to trade him. We was going to give you D'Angelo, Malik, and Jaden McDaniels. Now we're just giving you Malik Beasley and D'Angelo Russell because we know you have to trade him. So trade him now. You get back 3 nice players with the Timberwolves, maybe a first-round pick, maybe 2. I don't know, maybe first-round pick or 2. And you roll with that, and you make it work. The other deal or something that I saw was doing something with the Blazers, but accepting the fact that you can't get Dame and turning your attention to CJ Rocco in the first. That's cool. I prefer the Timberwolves trade more, if you ask, if I'm being honest. But I could see it. I could see that. Who plays your point guard? I don't know. Maybe you let CJ play like a point combo or something, some shit like that, and you surround them with, defensive-minded wings who can make a 3. You know what I mean? You put out a lineup where it's like CJ, Danny Green, Rocco, Tobias Harris, and Joel Embiid. But the point is, somebody has to cave, and it's going to have to be the Philadelphia 76ers. It's just that simple. Will Ben Simmons be able to go, choose where he wants to go? I want to play on the West Coast. Probably not. But he is going to get traded, which is what he wants. And the quicker the 76ers fold and give in and accept the fact that they're not going to get Damian Lillard, Bradley Beal, or 5, 6 first-round picks, James Harden-esque trade, the better it'll be for them. That's the entire Ben Simmons trade dilemma. Please, if you're new, subscribe, leave a like. And I want y'all to let me know what y'all think in the comments. And in fact, I want y'all to scan the internet or come up with your own Ben Simmons Philadelphia 76ers trade proposals. Put them in the comments, and I'll react to them in the next day or two. And we'll do some more Ben Simmons stuff until he gets traded. But any other thoughts that you have after watching this video, please let me know in the comments. As always, this is NBA Weekly. I am Pee Wee the Plug. I am out. Peace.